if confirmed, each and every one of you, as you well know, will be the first members of this review board. And you're going to have a heavy responsibility to stand it up. What you do in these initial days and weeks and months will set the course of this board for the future. So I would like each of you to describe your initial priorities for getting the board set up and running, and briefly discuss how you plan to approach those goals that form the basis of your priorities.
Thank you, Senator. I think our first priority would be to meet with the staff at NARA to determine which government agencies have in fact turned over records for inclusion in the collection, and to determine what, if any, processes NARA has already undertaken with respect to such records. It would also be a priority to staff the board, to hire a chief of staff and such other staff as would be necessary to facilitate our early and aggressive engagement in the work ahead if we are appointed. In addition to staffing and associating ourselves with the NARA staff who are responsible for the work to be carried out under the statute, we would also want to set a schedule for the release of records, again in consultation with the archives team, to set a schedule for the release of such records, and then to set a schedule for ourselves as to how often we intend to meet, under what circumstances we intend to meet, and how quickly we can get to the work of collecting, building the collection, and responding to the requests of agencies, if there are any, to postpone disclosure of the records. Thank you, Senator.
Great. Well, thank you. Ms. Dudley.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I underscore what Professor Burnham has already said. I think one of the initial things that we really need to do is, if confirmed, is to organize ourselves as a board. And one of those first things that we should do, I think, is to select a chairperson for the board, and then also think about the staff that needs to be hired to support the work of the board. And then, of course, working with NARA to think about what agencies have already sent over records that can be reviewed, and then which agencies will still need to send records. And once we have sort of that initial organization done, how can we set a schedule for review of those records, but then, as Professor Burnham has said, a schedule for ourselves. And I'm, if confirmed, would be very willing to immediately jump into doing that work. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Professor Klebanoff.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And for the question, first of all, let me just associate myself with the brilliant remarks of my potential colleagues, if we're all confirmed, Professor Burnham and Gabrielle Dudley, who I've had the pleasure to teach with here at Emory. I want to say, in addition to what they've said, is that most of us are familiar with the National Archives. We're familiar with their record keeping. We're familiar with, through the Freedom of Information Act that we've used over the years, we know plenty of records have been already requested over the years by scholars, journalists, historians, families. And to use a line that I heard Ms. Dudley mention the other day, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can go ahead and bring in and start to examine, even while NARA is trying to get other agencies that might be a little bit slower in turning their records over to do so. So there's we need to get some sense of the scope of the work. The clock is ticking, and we know that the time is limited that we have under the law, unless we're able to, get an extension. So I do think we need to get a sense of how much there is out there, the magnitude of the work. I will say lastly that I think we all appreciate this is not an honorary board. This is a working board. And there's a lot to do, and we are all committed to doing it for the same reason we've been committed to this work and all the years leading up to this. So thank you.
Yeah, very good, Professor. Thank you. Professor Stevenson, your comments.
Thank you, Senator, very much for this question, and thank you to my fellow nominees for all that you have said. It's nice to come last sometimes and to build on that. If I am confirmed, I will work very quickly with the other members who are confirmed to, first of all, to choose a chairperson, to meet with NARA to go over what the landscape of this work will look like with regard to the numbers of cases and what has to be collected and how that will be collected. We will have about 45 days, I believe, to choose a chief of staff and to begin staffing the committee as well, which I will be, working to help to do, as well as we have about 90 days to set up a schedule for review, how we will review the cases. So all of this work has to take place right away. And then we have to, as a board, organize ourselves with regard to setting up advisory committees, as well as making decisions about how decisions will be made. And perhaps even setting up a website so that we can have public interface as well. And so all of those things have to be done immediately. I am very committed, if confirmed, to jumping right into this work and doing this very, very important duty for the nation.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Well, it's clear that all of you have thought about this and you realize that you have a big job ahead of you and are all, I certainly appreciate you all speak enthusiastically about the job and are excited about tackling it. So thank you for that. Ranking Member Portman, you are recognized for your question.